Oh yeah! From the side now. From the side. Ah, this will probably be the final Trails in the Sky stream forever until second chapter comes out in September on Steam. Until I decide to do it all over again. Get this game loaded. Here we go. Now, a majority of the stream is going to be a dungeon crawl.
I'll take care of your
Although there'll be some cutscenes here and there. There's going to be a lot of combat. So, I thought about it last night, and I actually want Agate. I'm sure. Sure is busted. But I want Agate. In my head, although I'm going to be using Shira's skills a lot, who crafts, she's still technically a mage. And I have Estelle as another mage, Joshua's for physical, and Agate for heavy physical. Agate just pumps out a little bit more damage than Zin does. Zin is a stagger monster, but I think I could do more with Agate and his spamming his limit break. Oh shit, that's right, he only has... okay.
What do you need?
What do we need?
I'm waiting. Hurry up
All
and
of Agate's slots unlocked. Honor not Sepith. No. Whatever.
What do you need? Be careful.
Not the end of the world. I'll just have to come back. Okay, so... Agate doesn't really need limit break gen, CP gen, because he has massive amounts on his turn. But what I do want is probably speed and any damage for the brooch. Accuracy up would be nice. Just blind. Yeah, perfect. He doesn't have any other weapons, does he? No, just a Spider. Yeah. Coat. Now, I made a terrible mistake.
Are there any bargains?
I was a little confused last time if I had missed the ultimate weapons, and as it turns out, I missed the ultimate weapons. The last time you can get them is before storming the castle, and that is like 3 hours. It's like 3 hours of gameplay, so... oh well, you don't need them to win the game, they're just a nice little stat boost to make things go a little smoother. So, I am going to do...
What do you need? Be careful out.
Haze. Strike 3. Action 3 for sure. Any HP 3s? No, not really. It's fine. Hit 3 would be nice. That actually mean I won't have to wear that other headpiece.
What do you need?
I also want to buy
What do you need?
Time for some shopping.
accessories.
I'm waiting. Hurry up and pick.
So these spheres are like the best accessories you can get. Well, the best ones you can buy. Crit evade, defense ADF, arts ADF, strength. So I want one of these for Agate.
Got it. It's decided.
And this gives crit up. That'll give speed 5, which is perfect. Yeah, I'll put that on Agate.
I'll pick you.
There we go.
What do you need?
Which one should I pick?
Okay,
I'm waiting.
so
Hurry up and pick.
Agate's missing a slot. Can I get HP 3 and hit 3? Or even a break 3? I can get hit 3. Ah.
I'll pick this.
That might help with agates. With a shield, no. Chaos Blade, no. Fuse isn't super reliable. What I want is agate to just nuclear bomb everything he looks at. HP 3, perfect.
I'll take this.
Perfect. Okay. HP. Golden Sight. This sucks. If I had the extra slot, I would put that in, but I do not.
What do you need?
What do we need?
I'm waiting. So hurry up and pick.
We give him the
I'll take
hit
this.
3. It has
Take
strength
care
on
of
it,
you.
so. Just to make sure he never misses. Okay.
Careful out there.
Now, can we
I'll
kill
take
this
care
Healing
of you.
spot?
Be careful out there.
Right here. Okay.
This feels great. Whoa.
It's time.
Look at those pillars. I can't even see the floor.
I never expected to find something like this beneath the royal.
So this is where the Colonel did his research while plotting the coup.
Doesn't matter what this place is. Let's move.
Oh man. This is the part of the game where it turns into Diablo or Wizardry. Diablo 1. As it turns out, under the royal capital, beneath Gransel Castle, there is a hole, and it goes down and down and down a dungeon, crawling with monsters. Trails calls back to all of its predecessors, as do many JRPGs at the end of the game.
It's a mechanical monster.
What the heck?
Let's take
Always
it down.
left.
Whatever it is, we crush it.
Yeah.
Sure,
Gotcha.
on it.
Fear the king.
Salamanius!
Get the party started.
It's time to end this game. This is gonna take a few hours, but we're gonna do it tonight. These guys are almost dead. Why did I switch to this shit? That's fine.
Hey, you! You're going nowhere.
And the buff up for the finale. With this tube, I will commit various wonders and horrors upon my enemy. There are no markers either. Yeah, these guys are worth a lot.
Found treasure.
It's the big boys. EP charge 3. How about together? You see these pseudo siblings kiss up. Japan, go to Japan. Okay, if they're not blood related.
Right. Let's end them.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Estelle and Joshua swore under a starry night sky that they'd confess their true feelings for each other. Well, Estelle said she'd confess her true feelings for Joshua. Joshua said he would reveal his past to her.
Showtime. Ha! Stun.
This one's on me. Here I come.
Let's go.
I'm going to go as long as I have to.
Estelle, do it.
I know typically I finish at around midnight or 1 this team, but I'm going to having this one to the end. I have to see it. I have to see it. Wow, Automod actually flagged you this time?
Yes?
Finally
Skills
got
sure
you,
are
man.
something.
It did not like you saying... It's not that it didn't like you saying the word gay. It didn't like you saying super gay. Josh was like, oh, still, I'm super gay, sorry. These guys don't wear the whole lot of XP.
This chest is bad.
Ah, trap chest. Perfect. We can have a challenging fight.
Watch
Now,
out.
there are weapons in these, I think. There's any game
This one's
weapons for the other
dangerous. Keep it
characters.
together.
Oh, man. Oh. Okay. Not too bad.
My turn.
Alright, let's see how this combo works.
Time to strike. Agate, your turn.
Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final.
Jumps into Matt versus arms. The biggest 180 top 10 anime game twists.
Send 'em.
Okay.
Betrayals.
Ready? And go, Sherazard.
Combo, combo, combo.
Time to whip things up. Go, Estelle.
I got your back, Estelle.
Okay, so. What this? Flicker. I think this combo should take me to the end of the game.
Let's go.
He would have a fucking zero cast, of course. I mean, he stole it, so I guess this
Nowhere to run.
doesn't matter.
Prepare yourself. Let's keep it up. Also this. Eat this. Final break. Serves you right.
You're mine.
Gotcha.
Nice. One menu down. Nice. CP regen.
Estelle.
Earth guard. Just in case.
I won't let you.
AA cancel.
Let's go. I'm going all out.
Grab.
Gotcha. Stun.
You're mine.
Faster.
Nice, nice.
Let's go.
Okay. Now, I think morale's... You know, I don't know if morale stacks, but try it.
Let's do this.
Oh, it does.
Leave
Okay.
it to me.
Perfect. She doesn't really need to Heaven's Kiss, so this is a part where you would use spells. Now the orbital golems, as you can call them, which is interesting to me because they were not called that in the original game, but that may be a localization thing. Don't have any weaknesses to elements. So this is where the physical characters really shine.
Now I'm riled up. Follow my lead, Estelle.
Time to strike. Agate, your turn.
Let's end 'em.
Okay.
Oh man, Stagger 3 is beautiful and naked.
Let's go.
You're basically fulfill the role that Zin had, but he's got more damage. And he's not tanky. In other words, he's a second Joshua and is nothing like Zin. There you go.
You're mine.
Perfect, perfect. Now what did we get?
It's not enough.
Magester. Magister? Magester. Oh, that's a Matt Mercer gun. I think I can equip from here. No, I can. Okay. Make sure they get their weapons. I don't know if I'll swap out of this party, but I'll have them equipped just in case. Oh boy.
All right. Let's do this.
A treasure chest.
Zero bomb. Crashes, no. Did I miss a door? Oh, I did miss a door. Oops. Alright. We're back, a heal. Typical might and magic and wizardry fashion. Back in Diablo, Dragon Quest, all the greats.
That was
And we're back in the dungeon. Now the good news is, this dungeon I remember being really long, and it is, but at the same time, the fact that I can just run past enemies will speed things up significantly. It's one of the better parts of the remake.
Alright, treasure time!
Endless bomb. Oh, he's left.
Is this a dead end?
The floor in the center feels odd. Let's check it out.
Okay, I think this is the way to continue. Let's see. Here we go. I'll take it back up because there's other stuff up there I want.
It was an elevator, but it was
Level 2.
floating.
So, this is the ancient technology of the Zenorian civilization.
Gravity tech. Suddenly this game became Halo. Okay, so that's the way forward. So I'm actually gonna go down this hallway.
This chest.
Ah.
Use caution.
They look tough, but we're tougher.
Guard minions.
I'll get you all.
Stella's gonna be my delay monkey.
Gotcha.
There's also gonna be a limit break monkey. The Black Fang.
Farewell.
We'll finish this. Leave it to me. Let's do this. It's over. I won't let you.
Nice.
I'll beat you down.
Such a shame Agate is gonna lose his
I'll
crit.
handle
That's
the lot
fine.
of you.
It's better this way.
Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break.
You're mine!
My mean is
Each swing of his sword is like a nuclear bomb going off.
Everyone, let's go! Finish it, champ!
Okay, and we got the Heaven's Kiss. Get everybody.
Hit him hard.
Keep going!
I don't think I can get Joshua in. It's better that Agate gets it.
Time to whip things up! Go, Estelle! Everyone, let's go!
Let's go.
Buffing.
Nowhere to run.
All rage.
Prepare yourself.
I don't
Let's
rage.
go. I'll send this. Eat this.
We're gonna see this limit break alive for the next 2 hours.
Good.
You're mine!
Now I'm riled up.
Oh, the mass stuns. Man, her recovery is quick though. Does Estelle have
I can take them all!
the X clock up? She does not. He is anti-sound.
Get ready.
Oh well. We have impede. Estelle's a massive impede, which is perfect.
Gotcha! How about this?
Full burst.
Beat him down!
Yes.
Yes!
Let's do this. I won't let you.
Miss. Alright.
It adds to my womanly charm, huh?
It adds to her womanly charms. Alright, what do we got here? Dayless Arm. Aw, that's a Zin weapon. Oh well. Put that on Zin. Next.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Royal Guard, armor worn by medieval knights, providing complete protection. So, usually at the end of these games, or at least towards the end, you get the gender armor parts to F up. Okay, Joshua is a better cast. Actually, no, never mind. This will be better on Agate. In later games, you get it towards the middle of the game, but the gender armor is always really like I think the best in game armor.
Ha! A treasure chest.
I think there's an ultimate set too, but I don't quite remember. Okay.
What is suspicious chest?
Suspicious chest. Save.
Better
I'll
be
save that
careful.
last slot for right before the final boss.
This guy means business. I'm game.
Doom Type S? Type S plus? Doom Type D plus. Man, Doom.
Time to
We're getting some weird designs, man.
how's this?
I can't wait for Doom's robot arc. Wow.
Time to strike. Finish it, Shara.
Oh, these are weak to fire. Interesting.
Keep going.
Arcana of the goddess.
Prepare yourself. Let's go. I'll send this. Eat this. Final break. Boom. You're mine.
Leave it to me.
Completely whiffed that. Okay. I need to flicker these guys. Nice. One down.
Flames.
Very nice.
Now I'm
So that's a decent amount of dodge, which is awesome.
Everyone, let's
Okay,
go.
up, up. Like Heaven's
make it
Kiss,
hurt.
because it's good strength and speed, and some much needed limit break.
Time to whip things up.
Finish it, Agate.
Ah, I flubbed that hard. Oh well. That's okay, Joshua can fill.
Too late. Get here, Estelle.
Oh nice, he gets another one.
Gotcha. How about this? Let's get him.
Okay.
Ready and
It's over. I'm on fire.
Let's go.
Now the enemies typically aren't super dangerous. Can he die from this? Okay, it's close.
I ain't losing. It's over.
But if you get lazy, they can definitely overrun a party.
Break.
Nice. Oh, he's gonna self-destruct again. No. Oh, there goes Agate.
I did it.
Ninetales. Ooh, a whip with a mysterious sheen crafted with ancient beast hide. This is for Shira. Okay, here's Shira's endgame weapon. Nice. Did that change the model? Oh, it did. Okay. Here's some droplets. Heart's defense up. Okay, and strength on Honestly, I'm pretty tempted to just throw it on Agate because he's gonna be doing all the limit breaks. There we go. Maple cookies.
Not bad. Thanks.
All these old items that I never used because I'm playing on Nightmare mode, so.
Ha! Back in action.
This was fulfilling.
delicious.
Oh. Oh, I ate something new. Did you not make those? Oh, there it is. Okay. What? There's a whole other page. Well, I'm a fool.
Got
All
it.
right,
I'll make it right away.
time to cook.
Sure, here you go.
Speed up. I don't need that. Strength 10. Goodness.
There's a first time for everything. Yay! It went well!
Nice. Defense 10. Can't really make these. Defense 9. Crit 2. Crit 2.
There's a first time for everything. I think it's pretty good.
Nice. Crit 2. Okay. Evade up is decent.
Leave it to me. Yay! It went well!
Nice, nice. Okay, can't really make any. Really make any others. Defense 9 would be better.
Sure, leave it to me. Yeah, this went well.
Arts defense 7. I think this will be the
Alright,
last
here
one.
you go.
Perfect, perfect.
It happens, I guess.
Oh, never mind. Not perfect.
Alright, here you go.
Come on, Joshua. Put some
Alright,
salt.
it's
There you
complete.
go. All right.
This chest looks good.
More Sepith, nice. I hope I have enough to get Agate's
Treasure chest.
Agate's last slot. I'm gonna run back because the slot is going to help significantly.
Now we're talking.
God, I do not miss running through this shit in the old game. Because if you touch an enemy, you're forced into combat. You're forced into turn-based combat. I went the wrong way. Where am I going?
This feels great.
Okay.
I'll take care of your orbment adjustments.
Pick.
I'm
Go.
waiting.
Yes.
Hurry up and pick.
Excellent.
What do you need? Be careful.
Fence. I get all color. Okay. Now we have the last slot. So I want break 3 in this. 30 strength. More stun value.
There.
We should be as strong as Zin for breaking enemies. Especially with spamming limit breaks. Now we continue to the next floor. Floor 2. Wrong way. Excuse me, robots. Dun, 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 dun. Right. Left. Elevator. Excellent. That's floor 1. Floor 2. Always left.
This chest looks good.
Recharge 4.
This chest looks good.
More Sepith. Using monsters. The challenge chest alone, the trap chest alone should keep me in a good level range. I feel like. Oh, he's left.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Valkyrie dress. We have one of the female armors. Fence arts, fence strength. Is it a still piece of equipment? Elixir of life. Go.
Something's up with that chest.
That chest.
Watch out. Let's go. It's over.
LB. LB.
Final break. Let's end up.
Okay.
Ready? And
Nice.
Here's payback!
Lots of zero casts. Oh my god. Alright. Well,
Everyone, let's go.
Here's payback!
I'll show no mercy.
I catch all three of them. Alright. Good damage.
Here I come!
Shira, I'm gonna miss the zero cast, but that's fine. Hibiscus is more important.
Time to whip things up! Go, Estelle!
Time to strike.
Stack up buffs.
Follow my lead, Joshua.
Delay.
Gotcha. Agate, do it.
Rage.
let's go.
And then final break.
I'll settle this.
Even his basic attacks of massive stagger.
This. Final break.
This should break all three of them. I hope.
You're mine. Let's go.
Don't let your guard down.
Here we
Yep.
go.
I hope she gets a cast off before they recover. Okay, she will. Perfect.
Blow 'em away.
Boosting!
Burst.
Get 'em down.
Give it to me.
Let's do this.
Okay, I'll kill one of them.
Let's go.
Two of them. Okay, perfect. Look at He goes after Shira. Shira hits Heaven's Kiss. Oh, I guess not. He doesn't go after Shira.
Leave it to me!
Shira does not need to Heaven's Kiss. I mean, she can. No reason not to.
Oh, can't focus?
I should put Agate up above, which she needs to,
Time to strike.
or sorry, put Agate above what he needs to Limit Break.
I'm going all out. Gotcha.
His weapon is in here. I'm looking for Agate's weapon, really.
Get pulverized.
Faster.
Let's go. Prepare yourself. Good stuff. Let's go.
This is so unnecessary, but I'm gonna Limit Break. Because I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Eat this. Final break.
Because it looked cool. Nice, nice. Good XP. Potically. Okay, that's a, Wait, wait. Alright. Next. Miss any doors? No.
Alright, treasure time!
Sylvan boots. Female boots. Okay. Oh man. Arts defense, speed 10, move 9. Arts 15. This might actually be better on Shira. I'm not worried about her having huge evade and crit.
Nothing but small fries.
Okay, I think this way chest looks like.
Ha! A treasure chest.
Atlas gear, male shoes. Okay, so arts defense, speed 10, move 9, strength 15, evade up. Either one really could have this. It's a negative to, rather it's a loss or crit, but that's fine. I'm gonna put this on Agate. I'm gonna try and put. I would like his strength to go above 1,000, if possible. Okay. This place is a damn labyrinth. There we go. What's left? Always left. Might be going the right way. I think I'm going the right way. Okay, this is the next
Ha! A treasure chest.
elevator down. Atlas bomb. Now we fall always left the other way. And nothing. Nothing. Over here.
This chest looks good.
Materials. I think this goes to the other chest we saw earlier, next to the elevator. Above. Another elevator? This one goes back up the first floor. How do we get the other chest? I hope this is the wrong elevator. Yes, okay.
This chest. Use caution.
You heal up Agate a little bit. There we go. Just so he doesn't get one shot. Alright.
They look tough, but we're tougher.
Here I come.
What?
Let's get
Oh, can't focus.
Go, Estelle!
morale.
Let's do this! Joshua, do it!
Flicker.
Gotcha. Here we go.
Burst.
Let's do
These
this!
guys are pretty squishy. This chest should be pretty simple. Agate's gonna finish him off, I think. I hope.
Prepare yourself. Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break.
Close. It's very close. Big thing is the stun. Thought I could recover fast though. That's fine. Complete. Might kill one.
How about this? I'm on fire!
I won't let you!
Oh, he's actually gonna get his heal off. Oh, he didn't heal for shit. Okay. We're good.
Too late.
And dead.
This is the end.
Now, Sheriff!
Flames.
0 cast, we just finish him off.
Good stuff.
Wow, we're not finishing him off. Kill him, Agony.
I'm getting fired.
The 5k crit. Very nice. Oh, yes, there we go. Berserker. Black Greatsword forged using ancient technology and materials. Okay, Berserker. Oh, man. I guess evade as well. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any other doors, so...
Nothing but small fries.
Already went that way. Check the other hallways. So it's just a clear run back. Still just each. Floor 3. I'm on floor 3. Yes.
We're at the 3rd level. We've come quite far.
The enemies are tough, but that's no excuse to give up.
Let's just keep moving, one step at a time.
Okay, this is the right way, so I'm gonna go this way. At least I think that's the right way. What about elevator? Does this one go to the chest next to the other elevator?
This chest is bad news.
Yes, it
Watch
does.
out.
Time to strike! Joshua, do it!
I'll get you all. Gotcha.
Very small arena.
We'll finish this.
These guys are a joke, though. Yeah.
Ready and
Let's go. Go, Sherazard!
Why not?
Time to whip things up. You're up, Joshua.
Let's go. Follow my lead, Estelle.
Gotcha! How about this? I'm on fire!
I had half of mine just let him keep casting. She's just sitting there. Oh, not the Hellgate. Oh.
Let's go.
let's go.
There we go. This weapon isn't.
Let's keep it up.
Oh, it's Tita's gun. Okay. I'm probably not gonna use Tita since Shira's here. Tita generates a ton of limit break gauge, but Shira does the same thing but gives haste, which is bonkers. Okay, back this way. Rule of thumb. Where there's a healing station, there's a boss.
All right. Break time.
That was refreshing.
Do a quick save as well. Okay.
Still, be careful.
Huh? Hey, isn't she...
Amalthea. The last we saw was at the top of the castle.
You'd come here.
Beat her ass.
Captain Amalthea.
What are you doing here? Didn't we knock you out in the garden terrace?
As if someone like me would be defeated by such trivial injuries. It seems you managed to take back Gransel Castle. But once the Colonel secures the Oriole, We will reclaim it.
That's right. As a reminder, there's a world-ending threat underneath this castle. Very, very deep underground.
Honestly, she never learns, does she? I'd call her more of a viper than a fox.
Silence, all of you! I will never allow you to get in the way of Colonel Richard's plans. Come forth, my golems!
Man.
Whoa! She's controlling those ancient machines?
Do not underestimate our power. Since we began our research here, we've gathered an incredible amount of data. With it, even controlling these orbital golems is entirely within our grasp.
This ain't some joke.
Say whatever you like. Now, prepare yourselves!
Silver Woo!
You out.
Okay.
Now, let my operations and orbital golems crush you!
Oh no! They're gonna be crushed by us!
Agreed
Sorry,
still.
but we don't have time for this.
Do this! Agus, your turn!
Come here, Malthea. Actually, no, I better stand here. I can be in range of Heaven's Kiss.
Let's go. I'll send this. Eat this. Final break. Let's
First.
end 'em.
Okay!
Ready? And...
Go, Sherazard.
Heaven's Kiss.
Oh, can't focus.
Nice, nice. We spam Rel till we're capped.
Everyone, let's go!
Ready at any
Eat
time.
this! Yeah!
I'm going all out!
I'm going all out. Eat this.
Get pulverized.
Faster! Agus, do it!
Prepare yourself. Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break.
It's over. Eat this. It's over. Eat this.
I won't perish here! This isn't over!
No, it all ends here and now.
Okay, I can stun. Can I hit both? No, I can't hit both. This should break one of them.
You're mine!
I won't let you.
I'll make it hurt. Take that!
She did nothing to egg it. His sword is too big. Stun, nice. Joshua gets free heal. Joshua can now flicker.
Gotcha!
The burst.
Here we go!
Okay!
Fine.
Ready? And...
Reinforcements. I'm surrounded.
Here I
Perfect.
come.
Now they can't escape.
Time to whip things up.
You're up, Joshua!
Gotcha! Agus, do it!
Let's go.
Let's end this.
It's over. Eat this. Final break.
How dare you ruin our creations!
Too bad for you! Here comes our next attack!
Big boys are down. Oh, come on. No. Joshua,
How's
clean up.
this?
I'll get you all! This is the end! Fight!
This is the end.
Forgive me, Colonel.
turn.
Just auto attack. I'm gonna save my full burst for next fight.
It's trying to do something.
You're dead. Here you go. There. Now I'm riled up.
Ow.
Thanks.
You
Heal?
got guts.
What on?
Time to whip things up. Finish it out.
Just to see the animation. And dead.
Too slow.
Nice. Level up.
I think we got her this time.
Yeah, she'll probably be out for a while. But more importantly, the fact that she was guarding this area means we're on the right track.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, let's have Sieg go get everyone. Hey, Sieg!
Pewee.
I calculated the scale of the ruins based on the orbal readings we detected earlier, and this seems to be the midpoint of the ruins.
Whew, finally halfway there.
That explains the mid-boss.
I know we gotta hurry, but I'm getting nervous.
We might get lost if we run now. Remember, slow and steady wins the race.
Yes, this is the moment to hold strong. Be prepared to face the Colonel at any time.
Okay,
I'll take care of your orbment adjustments.
Time for some shopping.
Which one are you going to pick?
Jumpsuit, nothing really new.
I'll take care of your
There any
orbment
bargains?
adjustments.
Which one are you going to pick?
I could optimize Shira a little bit. Shield, foresight, plasma. Oh, yes. Evade's fine. Evade is just strong in general. I don't like Death Blade, but it gives strength, so. Okay, this should be fine.
I'll take care of your Be careful out there.
Back to Healy Station.
That's the stuff.
And onwards. There's a chest here.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Or Sepith. Always nice. Just this
Here we go. Treasure found.
materials.
This one's tough. Brace
What I might do,
yourselves.
let's go to square. It does go to square. Okay. I'm gonna run back. I'm gonna upgrade because I can't remember if the weapons can be upgraded. We prioritize Agate and Joshua. Let's see.
I'll take care of your orbment
Are
adjustments.
there any bargains?
I'll take care of your
Time for some
orbment
shopping.
adjustments.
Customize. Here we go.
I'm waiting. Hurry up and pick.
Yes, Berserker Plus. Here we go. Okay, so Agate's strength is now 951. Very good.
Yes, please.
Not worried about the others' weapons until I get Estelle and Joshua's weapons. Oh, I have Charizard's though. Art's up to 819. Goddamn.
Yes,
right.
please.
Oh, yeah. The armor. Oh, interesting. Big defense, big. Okay. One's wearing my Royal Guard Valkyrie dress. Cool. I'll get these all up.
I'll pick this.
Because it doesn't hurt to have this.
I'll pick this.
Okay. Give it these. Move speed. The speed up alone is gonna make this worth doing.
It's decided.
I made up my mind.
What do you need? Be careful out there.
The wrong way. Oh, that's the right way. Okay. Okay. Go, 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 go. Here. Lots of chests. Okay.
Found treasure.
Oh man. Okay. Another chest this way.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Atlas gear. These are. I already have them on Agate, and I can put them on Joshua. Which is crit, but strength up is going to be perfect for Joshua. Okay. Look at the heebly jeeblies. Okay, there's chest left. Always left.
Oh,
Chest.
a treasure chest.
Recharge.
Ha! A treasure chest.
Atlas bomb. Okay. Oh my god. How much XP is these guys?
One step at a time.
Stunned. I'll stomp you out. Let's end up.
Let's do this!
Let's go. I'll send this. Eat this. Final. Eat this.
Big damage. Oh. Oh.
All right. Time to strike. Joshua, do it.
Kill?
Now, Shell.
Oh, it's close.
I'll make it hurt.
Did Heaven's kiss.
Time to whip things up.
I don't want to self-destruct. Destroy my party. I missed. How did you miss it still? Here we go. Now kill. Alright, how much XP?
I got a little stronger.
It's alright, XP. At least Joshua got the level. Okay. Just to here.
All right, treasure time.
Next, female boots. Anything else in here? Okay. That's floor 3.
Time for round 2.
Floor 4.
Let's do this.
That golem seems even tougher than before. Stay on guard.
Look at you being so dependable.
I'll clear the path ahead.
Oh, he's left.
Let's move. You got grit. Bring it on.
Fight
Yeah,
from
father.
a distance.
XP's not that great.
This chest looks good.
Nice, we're 7th. Chest.
Treasure found.
Ruby blades. Oh, these are Joshua's weapons. Nice, very nice. I might be able to get Joshua and Agate over 1,000 strength.
A treasure chest.
To all. Nice, that's a party heal.
Alright, treasure time!
Recharge. Okay. I can taste the ending. I can taste it. Materials. Gotta get the weapons up.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Not just bombs. This anything? No. So we're just right now.
Oh, a treasure chest.
Recharge 4. Stairs to go down. Oh man. I hope I'm not going the right way. I'm going the right way, I think. Stairs down. Oh my goodness, okay. This place is enormous. Okay, there's an elevator. It's safe. Does it go up or down? If it goes up, we're good. It goes down. Okay.
Where did the enemies go?
Let's keep going.
Lowest level. Or 6, okay. Or 5, sorry. So let's not go there.
A treasure chest.
Zero capsule.
They look tough. We're tougher. Come out. Treasure found.
Royal Guard. Nice. No, the bracelet jacket's stronger.
Stay back.
We have a whole ass crossroads. He thinks this is the right way. Yeah, it happens. So I follow my rule. Always left. Always first. And then I break my rule. At least now I know how to leave, or rather how to continue. Treasure. At the spawn. Give me robots.
This chest is bad news.
Trap
Watch
chest.
it.
Okay, everybody's injured. Let's I'm gonna heal. I'm gonna use this first. Okay.
That was great.
There we go. Right.
I won't let you. I'll beat you down.
No reason not to just do a full limit break.
Let's go. I'll settle this. Eat this.
This.
Final break.
Like a sniper on the shield. I think this is the right. I see Alan from Smiling
Finish it,
Friends.
Joshua.
Me was born this way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is the right
Let's
way.
get it up. Let's get it up. How's this? Time to strike.
Here I
Let's
come.
kiss. Maggots.
Oh, can't focus.
Let's go.
I'm trying. No. Maggot.
How's
break these guys. Hard break.
Gotcha!
I'm on fire. Okay, your turn.
Rage. Break.
Let's go! I'll settle this. Eat this! Final break! Done! Let's end up!
Okay.
Ready? And...
Oh, they self-destruct when they die. Oh. We're okay.
I'll be your opponent.
Reinforcements. Here's what I think about your reinforcements.
Let's go.
This is the end.
Bite. It flinched.
This one's on me.
All right, big boys down.
I'll make it hurt. What? Oh, can't focus.
Buff us up, Shira.
Go, Estelle. How's
Keep everyone happy.
Don't let your guard down.
Here we go.
Gotcha!
Right, do it.
Gotcha!
Man, between Agate and Joshua, physical damage is down pat.
Try again.
Arc Rod. Oh, yes. Okay. So this is Estelle's endgame weapon. It's not her ultimate weapon. I made a fucky wucky and I missed the ultimate weapons, but that's fine. We can make do with that. Okay, there's one more door I missed.
This chest looks good.
Fuel bomb.
Fight from a distance.
Okay, that's the 4th level. I think that's everyone's weapons too.
This one's dangerous. Keep it together.
Sure, boss, you catch my Jeff. You know what I'm saying. You catch my gold. Lowest level. This makes it double in size to whopping 3 inches. Listen, listen, listen. It's not the size of the sword. It's how you wield it, my man. Oh, this doesn't look ominous.
All right. Break time.
That was refreshing.
Save. Okay.
This place. It feels different from the other places we've explored.
It feels like I'm being pushed, but there isn't any wind.
This is probably the end. Let's make sure we're fully prepared before heading inside.
I thought the other party comes here. So we can upgrade now. I guess not. Well. A red tower, a blue tower, a green tower, and a yellow tower. we seen those before? Richard.
I was expecting you. I had a feeling you'd somehow make it here eventually.
Colonel Richard. Her Majesty asked us to stop you, so we're here.
Looks like you haven't activated the gospel yet. That means you can still turn back.
I'm afraid that's not an option.
Why not? And what's this Oriole thing anyway? What do you even want with something like that?
It's said that the ancients harnessed the power of the Septarians, granted by the heavens. The Oriole is one of those treasures. If it truly does exist, do you have any idea what that would mean for the nation that possessed it?
For the nation?
To gain a powerful enough weapon so Liberal can fight against its neighbors. So that's what this is all about.
Precisely. As I'm sure you're aware, Liberal isn't like the other nations surrounding it. Our population is a fifth of Calvard's. Our military strength is only an eighth of the Erebonian Empire. The technological edge we have, the only one we have, won't last forever. To ensure we are never again invaded, we need something decisive.
But that doesn't mean you need to depend on some ancient relic. I mean, we managed to get through the war 10 years ago, didn't we?
We managed to drive back that invasion because Cassius Bright was there. But he left the army. The hero who defended our country is gone. Miracles like that, they can only be performed by the goddess and the hero she chooses. That's why I created the Intelligence Division. To stay one step ahead of other nations. Through spycraft, of course.
Spycraft.
But to also scour the world for a source of decisive power for our fair Liberal. A power that we could use to summon a miracle. One to deliver us from the darkness.
You really think that's a miracle?
What?
So, we're bracers. And we're here to protect the things people hold dear. But it's not like we're the only ones protecting them. If anything, we're just supporting people, helping them protect the people and places they love.
And how is that relevant?
My dad didn't defeat the Empire all by himself. He worked with so many people to defend this country, right? The war ended because people helped and supported each other. You were one of them, right? I think it's the same with us being here right now. I mean, when we first found out about your plot, we felt very hopeless. But thanks to everyone's help, we managed to make it here. Isn't that a miracle too? But it's actually not. I think it shows the potential each one of us has. So even if something like war happens again, as long as we're there to support one another, we can overcome anything.
With the power of friendship.
I'd put more faith
And
in that
memes.
than some weird ancient devices, that's for sure.
Estelle.
That's some big talk.
Seriously, when did you grow up so much?
I'll admit, you are strong. But not everyone can be as strong as you. When you are so close to great power, few can resist the temptation. I've carefully prepared everything for this exact moment. How could I possibly turn back now?
Let me ask you something. How did you find out about this place, Colonel?
What?
Ancient ruins that hold a forbidden power. Its existence unknown even to Her Majesty the Queen.
The real world ending threat was the. I know you meant to say friends, but the fiends we made along the way. It's even funnier.
And yet, you knew to construct an elevator directly below the treasury so you could get here. No matter how extensive your intelligence network is, you couldn't have found this alone.
That...
And there's the gospel.
Yeah, this thing just kind of appeared out of nowhere. Kurt found it and sent it to Cassius. But he lost his memory in doing so.
An orbment crafted with technology even more advanced than that of the Central Factory. How exactly did you get your hands on that?
I don't have to answer to you.
No. You're not answering because you can't.
Nutty?
What do you mean?
You were convinced that this powerful artifact called the Oriole was here. And you thought you could obtain it by using that black orbment. But you can't remember what led you to believe that. Isn't that right?
You mean...
So maybe someone did something to his memory, like they did to Mayor Dalmor, huh?
And what of it? The existence of such power is proven by these ruins beneath us. And those weapons, the Orbal Golems, they are far beyond anything we could possibly create on our own. Therefore, I will follow the path I have chosen!
Oh boy.
If your words are true, go ahead and try to defeat me. But if you cannot, it will prove your beliefs are nothing more than naive fantasies. Behold the power and techniques I learned from the Divine Blade himself.
He's got a katana.
Bold words.
We won't hold back either.
Come, let me show you the truth of this world.
We're not powerless, and we'll prove it here and right now.
Good stuff. Well said, Estelle. Let's end this thing.
Don't worry, I got your back.
Estelle is right. We can overcome this together.
Together.
Ready?
Together.
And...
Together.
Now I'm riled up. Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break.
You're mine!
Now I'm riled up.
Leave it to me.
Okay, I need to... Richard is really dangerous. Okay. I don't know how much the delay is going to affect him.
This one's on me.
I won't let
No.
you.
Oh, fuck.
Stop at once. Back off.
Oh,
Damn you.
hit the tanks.
You got guts. What? Oh, can't focus. You're up, Joshua.
I can't quite hit all three. Oh well.
Too late! We'll finish this! Let's do this!
All right. Time to strike. Agate, your turn.
Prepare yourself. Let's go. It's over.
Here, Richard.
Eat this. Final break.
Nice, nice. We're getting there.
I see. It seems you're more than words. But my sword is one forged to protect. Do not underestimate its might.
Flag it.
To protect, huh?
Not good.
You really saying that after all the crap you've done?
Well, right or wrong, at least he's consistent.
But he only has one sword now, right? In that case, we can break it in half.
Enough talk! I won't let you!
Luminous Ogre. Oh, the Virgil Slash!
The end!
Payback time!
Ready at any time!
I think the defense was up. Okay.
Perfect move.
Okay, I want this little one dead. That's the little one. I want this big one dead, sorry. Fucking blind.
Faster! Estelle, do it!
Okay, one more stack for morale.
Everyone, let's go!
I won't let you!
Okay,
You ready for
Richard
this?
has a heal,
Don't
so I
make
can
it
steal that
hurt.
with Agate.
Oh, can't
Oh,
focus.
Agate is fucking
Let's go!
paralyzed. Gonna, get rid of that. Here it is, seal.
There!
There we go.
I'm on fire! Joshua, do it!
Fuck it. We got the crit. Burst. Stun. Maybe stun.
Let's do this! You destroyed the orbital golem. I suppose your arrival here was no coincidence.
Nice, that's one down. Or that's two down.
How about that?
Now it's your turn.
Agate might die, but I want to get this off.
Eat this! Final break! Kaboom! Stunned!
You're mine! We're almost there!
Nice, he is stunned.
We can defeat him!
To think you would corner me this far.
Oh, he just breaks out of it.
Suppose I'll have to give you that. But the true battle begins now.
Oh, man.
You're not going to give up either.
My turn!
Okay, how about an earth card?
Let's go. Gotcha.
Ah, the delay didn't fun. Ah, there's the enrage.
I won't let you. Can you dodge this?
No, not the ice crab.
Here I come.
Oh my god.
You will know death.
That looked fucking awesome. Unfortunately, Joshua resisted it first.
I'm getting fired now! Nowhere to run!
That looks so cool. Okay, I need to see it. This didn't kill Agate. There's another game with a character that did something similar. They lose HP to get limit break, but in that game they could actually die when they resist it. Second die? Oh, it sets him to one?
Here I come.
What the fuck? Okay, Agate is just busted him. Alright.
You alright?
Back in action. Let's go!
Alright, Agate. Show him what for.
I'll settle this. Eat this! Final break!
You're mine!
Now I'm riled up! I won't let you! Prepare for your destruction!
Nice, Agate with the block.
My turn!
Want to anti-set him. Remove his enrage buffs. I kind of been sleeping on. Oh, he was.
Let's go.
I lose. Oh, he. No, I got him. Never mind.
The perfect move.
Ooh, this guy's foresight. I didn't know that. Party-wide foresight too.
You're a lifesaver!
Foresight is evade and crit. If I remember correctly. He's gonna ice grab again. Joshua.
You will know death.
He almost killed him. Almost. Not quite enough.
Make it hurt. Oh, can't focus.
Go, Estelle! Everyone, let's go!
Leave it to me.
Get pulverized!
Agate, do it.
Prepare yourself!
Is the end?
Let's go. Follow my lead, Estelle.
Let me get the bus off first. There we go.
Follow my lead, Joshua.
Too late.
Oh, I might be able to kill him.
Fine.
Ready, and...
Got him. Nice, nice. Double up.
Impressive. I'd expect nothing less of Colonel Cassius's children. But it appears you're too late.
Oh, shit.
This is...
So this is the orbital shutdown.
Oh boy.
No! The orbital shut down!
What was that?
It must have been an orbital shutdown, but it didn't feel like the ones we've experienced before. It felt like something was released.
Warning. All personnel.
That device is talking.
Dissolution of Oriole sealing mechanism first barrier has been confirmed. Use of gospel in the deepest level of the sealed area presumed. Device tower activation confirmed.
Oh no.
What's happening?
First barrier? Oriole sealing mechanism? Colonel, what's going on?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I never anticipated anything like this happening.
I didn't think I would get this far, if I'm being honest.
Dissolution of the first barrier. Faint interference waves from Oriole detected. Unsealing of the Guardian of the Ring confirmed. All personnel are advised to evacuate the sealed area as soon as possible.
Metal Gear.
What's this ugly thing?
Stay sharp. This must be the Guardian of the Ring.
This isn't some kind of dream, is it?
Hey! We seriously fighting this thing?
Gate secured. Orbital energy supply restored. Reboot complete. Mode, search and destroy. Coordinates confirmed. Deepest section of the sealing mechanism facility. Guardian of the Ring, Reverie. Resuming search and destroy operations. Target sighted.
Oh, fuck.
Species,
Okay.
human. Count, 4.
Reverie.
Verification complete. Designation, enemy. Initiating elimination.
What? Species?
If it thinks we're the enemy, we've got no choice but to fight. We don't know what that is, but there must be a way to win.
That thing's nothing. Just gotta break it good.
This is our moment of truth. Can't focus. Go, Estelle!
All the buffs.
Time to strike!
Leave it to me.
Other round.
Thanks.
Let's go.
Alright, Agate. Kick it off.
This one's on me.
Let's go. Toss of this. Eat this. Final break.
Oh my god, that crit!
On me. Here I come.
Whew. Damn. Alright.
Time to whip things up. Go, Estelle!
Let's do this!
They can stack.
Follow my lead, Joshua.
Okay, Joshua can freestyle now.
Too late. Yes. Gotcha.
Agate, do it.
Let's go.
I kill this one.
It's over.
He's stunned, so he takes increased damage. This is
Final break.
burst.
Let's end 'em.
Okay.
Let's do this! It's over!
Nice, just one down. Oh, he fucking enraged. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks.
I won't let you.
Safeguard, nice. Buster laser. Oh my god, even with the resist. Okay,
It's dangerous. Be careful.
I have a party heal, right? I could have sworn I found a part. Okay, Not from a stellar curtain. Okay. So Joshua needs to steal that zero cast
Ready at
and all
any
his
time.
buffs.
This is the end. Bite.
It flinched.
Nice, still bonus.
This one's on me.
Just got a repair function. Oh, that heal. Okay.
Leave it to me.
I recall now, this thing is immune to, not immune, but heavily resistant to, physical. So, shit.
I'll
Okay,
make it hurt.
need another round. He's just gonna keep healing the boss. Have its kiss.
Oh, can't focus.
I better do something.
Joshua's a zero cast. Okay, then I'll have, still heal.
I'm going all out.
Gotcha.
Okay, Agate can keep chipping away at the boss. Come on, Swordman. Show him what for.
Do this thing.
Thanks. Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break. Stunned.
Nice.
Too slow.
Oh, boss.
Let's go.
Joshua would be just be a good time to impede.
The perfect move. Here.
Eat this.
Nice.
Here we go. Leave it to me. Let's do this.
Okay, Hits on the other hand is taking no damage from that. I think limit breaks are the exception, looks like. I don't know if that was the case in the old game. God, the fucking rockets! Nice.
Now I'm mad. But speed it up.
Okay, still keep us buffed.
Here we go.
HP shield, very good. Okay. In this case, I'm not gonna be able to get Joshua, unfortunately, but that's fine. He's fast as fuck anyway.
Finish it, Agate.
Prepare yourself.
Let's go.
Boss is almost dead. It's this thing. They don't want to.
Here we go.
Eat this. Final break.
Warning. Updating enemy threat level.
Ooh. Oh, that ended the encounter.
Why won't it just stay down?
It's gearing up again.
Oh no. Phase 2?
Mode. Genocide.
Genocide.
Reverie. Begin annihilation sequence.
Oh boy. He's got a mouth.
Reconfirming enemy.
I need a rate changed.
Commencing urgent elimination.
247,000
Worse than
HP.
before.
Genocide mode, huh? Looks like it's not going to hold back.
So what? We've been to hell and back already.
Yeah, there's nothing we can't get over. Let's go, Estelle. Everyone?
Yeah.
Phase 2 genocide.
Here I come.
But I was unaware is that is in fact worse than a phase 1 genocide. Oh, I can't have its kiss. This sucks. Okay. Wait. What am I talking about? Of course I can Heaven's Kiss. I just gotta give myself another turn. Fuck up the X.
Here I come.
There we go.
Oh, can't focus.
This fight can be pretty dangerous because it is 3 fights in a row with you get no chance to heal or get your mana back at all. But I think we're pretty well geared. And our party composition is gonna carry us hard for this.
Let's go.
I don't know if he can be delayed. I can try. Phase 2 genocide makes the phase 1 just like a regular old mass murder. Just a little mass murder. He's not gonna be able to get his thing off. Oh, really? He will! No! Shotgun roar. Oh, nice.
Now
He
it's
missed.
my turn.
How about the crit?
Eat this. Final break.
You're mine.
Agate is going to be all of the damage against this thing. This thing has 200,000 HP. Oh. Do we have guard? Just a little mass mortar. Just a little bit of mass mortar stat. Roll up.
Everyone, let's go.
Get it stack too.
Leave it to me.
Super keen on using this butt. They'll have foresight, which is perfect. I don't know if this thing could be
Time to get bold.
affected. No, I'm just gonna flicker. Wait, no. Poke a dagger.
You're done. This one's on me.
Now, Shara.
Okay, so Agate. Heaven's Kiss.
Oh, can't
I
focus.
think I'm gonna lose the steam on the combo. He's gonna get a turn off, which is fine. I'm trying to stagger him.
It's over.
All right.
Does he even have a... No, he doesn't have a stagger bar. Okay. Last stack.
Everyone, let's go.
Let's go. Prepare yourself. Let's go. Let's go. It's over. Eat this. Final break. I
It's
won't
not quite enough. Okay. That doesn't look good. Oh. Okay, he only hit Agate.
All right.
And Agate guarded. So we have all 3 stacks of morale up, so we should be okay.
Here we go. Burn.
Leave it to me. Let's go. Too slow. Now, Shara.
Okay. Oh, Heaven's Kiss there. This is the end of the combo. I guess I could clock up EX. Should, yeah.
Here I come.
She's running low on mana though, so that's the last of that. Heaven's Kiss.
Oh, can't focus.
Leave it to me.
So close. We're getting there. Flicker.
Time to get bold.
Too late.
I got a limit break gauge on Joshua. Full burst.
Here we go.
Please. Will that hit the stagger? Not quite.
Right arm, significant damage. Double A canceller inoperable.
Double A canceller.
We're doing it.
Takes
See?
double A batteries.
No sweat.
Yeah, we can do this.
Let's go.
Oh, just barely got enough.
Eat this. Final break.
You're mine.
Follow my lead, Estelle.
Okay, next turn loses morale, so I get a morale buff again.
Time to strike.
There's a stagger, recovery, alert signal alpha.
My turn.
Holy shit. 5,000 HP. I actually forgot this menu exists. This shows you what the resists are, okay.
How's this?
Well, it's not so difficult. I guess on a higher difficulty it would be more important.
Here we go.
Alert signal beta. I think these things are resistant to physical and magic. I just don't remember which one.
Burn. Let's go.
Oh, this is the right decision.
Too slow.
Okay.
Let's go.
Repeat. Hey, Buffalo.
This
Okay.
one's on me.
Ow.
Healing.
You're a lifesaver.
Here I come.
Let's kiss.
Oh, can't focus.
You're up, Joshua.
Sit.
Just confirming everyone's resistant to magic. Oh, they both can be kids. Okay, never mind. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm probably thinking about a different endgame boss in the Betrayal series. There we go. Come on, Joshua. Like these guys out.
Stun.
Reversed.
Leave it to me.
Okay, that gives Agate enough limit break from that chain. Oh, they self-destruct. Oh, Agate.
Significant damage. Buster laser inoperable.
So much more.
Too bad you had to face us.
Come on, guys. Let's go all out. You're mine. Now I'm mad. Let's speed it up.
Let's give Agate some foods. There you go, buddy.
Back in action.
Carnage boost. Oh, fuck. Is he in rage?
I won't let you.
Genocide arc. Here it comes. Oh, my ass! Oh.
Initiating cooling procedure.
Defense down. Agate is fucking dead. Oh god. Okay. It's okay. We're good. We're good. We're good. It's a little setback.
Back in action.
That would be a really good time for a Heaven's Kiss. We don't have enough. Okay, I know what to do then. We're gonna use all the limit breaks, every single one.
Finish it, Agate.
All three of them anyway.
Eat this. Final break.
You're mine. This is nothing. Time to end this.
First.
Leave it to me.
Ready and it's over.
Here I come.
Shira, finish him!
Do as I say.
Boing!
Take that and that and that and that. And that.
Too slow.
Ceasing function.
Our local whip mommy killed the final boss. She spanked him good. Look at him, he's spent.
Did we destroy it?
Yeah. Looks like we stopped it.
So this was the Guardian of the Ring. It seems its purpose was to destroy the facility that kept the Oriole sealed away. And once the Oriole was sealed, it shut itself down. I wonder if the ancients fought amongst themselves for the Oriole. Or... But then, where is the Oriole?
Oh
What?
my god.
It can still fight?
Damn it. My body won't move.
Joshua!
Estelle!
Ooh!
No!
Colonel?
The turn face!
I'll handle this. Get out of here, now!
It's like a real pro wrestler.
You all just fought this thing. But I'm back on my feet now. And I can buy you some time.
Kick his ass.
As expected, someone who studied under her father.
What are you doing? Get
It
out
looks
of
so
here!
good in 3D. Oh, his sword!
What should we do?
Just go! The moment I lost to you, my fate was sealed.
No!
So, don't concern yourselves with me. My plan may have ended in failure. But if I can save you, then I'll have no regrets.
No regrets. No regrets.
Unbelievable. If you don't give up, a path to victory will always appear. Didn't I teach you that?
Aw, shit. Daddy's home.
No way!
Now, finish him!
There's so many things I want to say.
Phase 3.
We can't miss this chance.
4 fights in a row.
Right.
RG High New Gun. Let me look this up real fast. RG High New Gun. Damn. Ooh. I like that design a lot. I always like when they have the giant shield. Shield and gun is a cool one.
Let's get serious.
Nice. Char's counter tap. Bell torch against children. Very cool. Okay. Shit. I used up all my break gauge. It's fine. We have these. Unless the cell has... It does not. If I can give this to Shira.
There! Thanks!
Mode recovery. Initiating restoration.
Seriously? This persistent bastard.
Tone it down a bit, will you?
I'm so tired of this. Joshua, everyone, we're ending this here and now.
Yeah, this is truly the end.
My turn.
Oh shit, just get Never mind. He's only got 33,000 HP. That's why I'm just gonna auto attack him.
All right, time to end this. Ha! Ha! Attack!
We're fine. Yeah, let's let Sheer kill him again. Let's just kill him. No. Sure, I can kill him. Kick his ass. Give him another spanking.
Looks like you need a spanking.
Take that and that and that and that and that.
Oh. It just crumbled into parts. No. My high-grade Reverie Guardian.
I won.
It's broken. You know how much the import cost for that?
Good work, everyone.
Okay, Astro. He got spanked twice by
Hey,
Shira.
Estelle and Joshua. I'm back. It's been quite a while, hasn't it?
Dad?
You still have a long way, but your training paid off this time. Well, I suppose I'll give you a passing grade.
Forget all that. What are you even doing here, Dad?
What am I doing here? Well, let's just call it happenstance.
What kind of crappy answer is that?
You're looking as lively as ever, Dad.
Oh, have you grown a bit taller while I was away? How was it looking after Estelle? She can be quite a handful, can't she?
What's that supposed to mean?
It had its moments. But honestly, Estelle has helped me just as much as I helped her. I'd say we're even.
Ah, sounds like it's been a productive journey for you both.
It's gonna weird Cassius out when his son and his daughter are kissing each other.
Master, welcome back.
Good to see you, Sherazard. Seems I left you with quite a mess while I was gone.
You certainly did.
The only man Shira calls master.
But it was good training.
As expected from my top trainee. How are Estelle and Joshua's skills shaping up?
Yes. I would say they're ready to be senior bracers. Honestly, I don't think they're aware of how much they've grown.
Hey, old man. Where the hell have you been this whole time?
Ah, the young ruffian. The professor told me quite a bit about you. Sounds like you worked rather hard. How commendable of you.
Don't treat me like some kid.
Only teasing. I hear you did a great job investigating the Special Ops team. Also, you did a lot for my kids. Thank you.
Sure.
Now's not the time for friendly chit-chat. Seriously, talk about swooping in at the last minute and stealing the spotlight.
My, oh my. Looks like you've managed to wrap things up here.
Ah, Professor. You're rather late, aren't you?
After you went ahead, we were surrounded by a horde of those horrible golems. We finally made it here after fighting them all off. Though it seems you managed to take care of everything.
Yes. We still have much to address, but things have settled down for now.
But, what about the army headed towards the castle? They're controlled by the intelligence division, right?
Right. It looked like they had patrol ships. Dad, how were things looking above ground when you arrived?
Ah, no need to worry about all that. I asked General Morgan to step in and take control of the situation. Sid's assisting him as well, so things should settle down soon enough.
What?
I see. You had all these pieces in place long before coming here.
So you're awake?
I placed General Morgan under strict surveillance. I even took Sid's family hostage to ensure he couldn't defy me. Yet, somehow, you managed to free them both.
Yes, something like that. But listen, Richard, that's all I did. Even without me, they would have found a way to make it on their own.
No, that's not true. You are a hero. After you left the army, I was so filled with self-doubt. I couldn't even imagine us winning if we were invaded again. That's why I looked for a different pillar for us to lean on. If only you had stayed in the army, things wouldn't have gone this far.
Wake up, Richard. Your biggest mistake is letting yourself create this delusion about me. With all that talent, why didn't you stand on your own 2 feet? I left the army because I trusted it would be safe in your hands.
Colonel.
Big ass bruise on his
face. I'm not
face.
the hero you think I am. The only reason we won 10 years ago was because the general and all of you helped me. And in the end, I'm nothing more than a man who ran away from reality after failing to protect what mattered most.
Dad.
But I'm not going to run away anymore. So Richard, you should stop running too. Face your mistakes and atone for them. Think about where you went wrong.
And thus, the Intelligence Division's coup attempt came to an end. With the combined efforts of General Morgan and Major Sid, order was restored to the Royal Army units. Those within the Intelligence Division who had supported the plan were swiftly arrested across the kingdom. And so, 1 week later, the 60th anniversary of the Queen's birth. Evangelion ending where everybody's just standing in circles clapping. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Estelle Bright, Joshua Bright. For your accomplishments, the Grancel Branch grants you a recommendation for Senior Bracer status.
Yes. It only took an entire 50-hour game.
Please accept it.
Thank you!
No, Mira! What the fuck? I just saved the world! Don't get shit for money? 370 BP. Final recommendation?
With this, you now have recommendations from all 5 regional branches. Now then, Cassius.
Paid exposure.
If you would do the honors.
You know how many people exposure has killed?
Very well.
Every musician's champion.
Estelle Bright and Joshua Bright. Under the rules of the Bracer Guild, I hereby grant you both the rank of Senior Bracer. Please submit your recommendations from each regional branch.
Yes, sir.
Yes, here you are.
Estelle and Joshua handed over the letters of recommendation from all branches.
Roland, Bose, Ruan, Zeiss, and Grancel. I have confirmed all 5 signatures from the branches. Final rank, Junior Bracer, Class 1.
That's alright. I got all the way to the top.
I never thought you'd make it this far.
Okay, Dad.
You've surprised me. In the name of Adios and the Bracer Guild, I hereby appoint you both Senior Bracers. Receive your emblems with honor.
Yes.
Obtain Senior Bracer emblem. Nice, nice. It's gold. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congrats, Estelle and Joshua.
That new emblem looks good on you. Well, guess you guys didn't do half bad this time.
Thanks, everyone.
We only made it this far thanks to everyone's support.
Remember, as Bracers, your true journey starts now. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I know.
We'll work even harder from now on.
Well, then I hate to bring this up now, of all times, but I have some unfortunate news to share with all of you.
Unfortunate news?
As of today, Cassius Bright will be leaving the Bracer Guild and will be resuming his post in the Royal Army.
What? Seriously?
I know this is sudden, and I'm sorry for springing this on all of you after being away for so long. But the chaos following the coup is still far from resolved. Order must be restored to military command after what the Intelligence Division did. And I will help them with that.
Oh, that's right. Soldiers aren't allowed to be bracers. Oh, and you guys already knew about this, right?
Yes, he talked about it before with us. It's honestly a little scary, but we'll never become full bracers if we keep relying on my master.
Well, guess it's time for us young guns to prove we can handle things on our own.
Ah, yeah, that seems about right.
We just can't catch a break. Things are going to get extra busy.
Well, seeing as you've just gained 2 new senior bracers, feel free to put them to work in my absence.
Hey, come on.
Sounds like things are going to get even crazier for us.
Seriously, Dad? Why can't you join us for some sightseeing during the birthday festival?
Sorry, but I already have a military council to attend. Though Richard was arrested, there are still plenty of special ops soldiers who have gone into hiding. And Captain Amalthea managed to escape while we were in the underground ruins. On top of that, it seems those sky pirates took advantage of the situation and fled.
Capuas.
We need to maintain tight security to ensure nothing disrupts the festival.
Unbelievable. How are they all so persistent?
Yeah, none of them seem like the type to give up easily.
Well, it's all mostly precautionary. The real issue is what all those events in those ruins actually meant. What could happen now that Richard has broken the seal? What exactly the Oriole is?
Which we never found.
Those are what we must figure out.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, it seemed like Colonel Richard's memories of everything were foggy.
Indeed. Like Kurt, he says there are things he still can't recall. But one thing did come to light during his questioning. The origin of that black orbment.
Huh?
You figured out who made it?
No, but we found out who brought it to the intelligence division. Special Ops Commander, 2nd Lieutenant Lawrence Belgar.
That guy.
Apparently, he handed it over to Richard when he was first recruited by the intelligence division.
This is the guy that jumped off the castle, by the way.
It was right around the time Richard started planning the coup. We'll need to conduct a thorough investigation into who this 2nd Lieutenant Lawrence really is.
Ah, I knew he was more than meets the eye. And isn't it lucky I got to see his face? If you want, I could try to sketch a picture of him for you.
Ah, I might ask you to do that eventually. Although I can't say I have much faith in your drawing ability. Perhaps I'll ask Sherazade and Her Majesty as well.
Hey! What's that supposed to mean?
Estelle, you saw Lieutenant Lawrence's face?
Hell yeah, we did.
Oh, I didn't mention it earlier?
He's he's handsome as fuck.
When we fought at the Royal Keep, he took off that helmet. He looked like he was in his late 20s and had ash blonde hair.
What?
But, as Her Majesty said, there was something about his eyes. They were cold, but at the same time, they were burning with something. He even told the Queen, "You have no right to pity me."
No right to pity him? Huh.
Joshua?
Ah, you've always had a tendency to overthink things. Just leave this matter to us and go enjoy the birthday festival, okay?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah! Let's enjoy it 100%! Oh, that's right. Aren't we staying at the castle tonight?
Yeah. Her Majesty kindly offered us 2 guest rooms in the right wing. Joshua and I will take the room on the right, and you and Sherazade will have the one on the left.
Wait, I'm sharing a room with Shara?
Would you prefer a different arrangement? Perhaps I could stay with you and Joshua with Sherazade. You could spend all night catching up with your loving dad.
On second thought, I'll stay with Shara.
Aren't you shy? Very well then. See you tonight.
Time is okay, good.
You
We have
know,
lots of time.
it's been a while, so I wouldn't mind if you wanted to spend the evening with him. I'm sure there's a lot you two have to talk about since you've learned more about your mother.
Yeah, that's true. But I just didn't want you and Shara to share a room.
Huh?
Nothing.
Ooh.
Yeah, anyway, let's go do some sightseeing. The town is super lively.
Yeah, let's check it all out. If we get tired, we can take a break at the rest area in the East Block.
Oh, the one behind the department store, right? All right, let's explore the town and end at the rest area. There's so much confetti. It's like the entire city is cheering. We went through a lot, but the hard work was worth it.
My thoughts exactly.
Okay, there's a sub-event up here. The gate. Inside the castle, okay. Probably should have saved. This was a bit tight. Okay. Save. The final slot.
Are gone, but I'm sure the castle staff will be busy.
Should we offer our help? As maids, of course.
Please, give me a break.
Yeah, dress up Joshua again. Okay, so it's over here, looks like.
Please feel free to look around.
Olivier! Oh, Olivier. Well, if it isn't Estelle and Joshua. I heard from Cassius that congratulations are in order. Senior bracers, eh? Splendid work, my little pussycats. Splendid work indeed. I'm gonna ignore the pussycats part, thank you. So, Olivier, what are you doing here? I heard you were invited to today's banquet, too. Hold on. Don't you love festivals and stuff? What are you doing drinking alone in a place like this? Are you a doppelganger? While you two were being awarded your senior bracer badges at the guild, I was partaking in the festivities to my heart's content. Oh, Matt Mercia. Oh yes, I even hosted an impromptu concert for the Grand Arena. If only you could have seen the fervor with which my adoring fans cheered. I don't buy it. That reminds me of the performance we saw back at Haken Gate. Well, having enjoyed my time being the life of the party, I'm quite content quietly drinking by myself. Now, my solitary, wistful silhouette is something of a work of art. Behold the complex visage of a multifaceted man. Stop stringing together random words. Poor Matt Mercer. He could have fulfilled the the role of mage, that's what I meant to say, in the final dungeon pretty well. He's got a good versatility with his orbit slots. It's in here, okay. He can heal, he can do damage.
Let's go.
He does it all.
Let's go. We got to meet the queen, so the birthday festival feels like a real birthday party. All right, time for a celebration. Let's have fun.
We just became senior bracers. Don't get too carried away, okay?
There's one here.
Let's see.
Embassy emergency. Wow, there's a side quest, okay. Please apprehend a self-proclaimed genius musician with blonde hair and a white coat no later than this evening. You should still be wandering somewhere in the royal capital. Look at the clients. Military attaché Mueller.
It's a request from Mueller. Wait, it's asking us to...
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Let's go talk to that idiot.
Poor Olivier. He just can't catch a break from Mueller. Hey, he was at the bar. Oh, Estelle and Joshua. It's the birthday festival. It'd be a pity if you didn't go out in the town and enjoy it to your heart's content. Hey, Joshua, isn't the target that requests in the bulletin board? Yeah, it has to be him. Oh, could it be? Do you plan to enjoy an afternoon fling with yours truly? Oh no, all three of us. That's perhaps too titillating even for me. Okay, Matt Mercer, settle down now. Very well, though. I shall gladly accept. Wow, what a coincidence. We know someone that has the hots for you, Olivia, even more than us. What did you say? Is that true? Yes, we'll gladly take you to them. But it goes without saying. Take me there at once. Why are we at the Bracer Guild? Hey there, just stay calm. Ellen has currently let them know you arrived. Yes, that's right. Please come to the Bracer Guild. We managed to get in touch. They'll come here right away. This person must just be dying to meet me. By the way, is the kitty cat in question someone I know? I think this person knows you super well, yep. Ah, little kitty, here at the Royal Capital. It must be Shara, or it may be Karna, or Annalise. Perhaps it is Mayor Maybell, or even dear Leela. Oh, what if it's Princess Claudia, or precious little Tita? Okay. Olivier. Never dust off the sword. You know, you sure do have a wild imagination. Seems they've arrived now. Oh, finally, I have been awaiting this moment. My sweet love, come to me. Let us join hands. Don't mind if I do. What the? Get him, Bueller. Lock this man up. You're the ones who completed the mission, then. On behalf of the Imperial Embassy, I thank you. No, it's nothing. We got some for you to look into, yeah. Olivier came voluntarily. I'm confused. Where is the kitty cat who wanted so badly to meet me? You absolute idiot. I'll let you attend the banquet tonight because Her Majesty personally invited you. But don't think that gives you license to do whatever you want. I hope I've made myself absolutely clear. Estelle, Joshua! You naughty kitties, you scoundrels! You cheated me! Don't make it sound weird. And besides, we never once said that it was a woman waiting for you. Now then, there's not much time until evening. We're going back to the embassy, and don't even think about stepping out again. No! Have fun in prison, Olivier. Seems like this matter is settled. The investigation is complete, so please accept your reward. Your senior bracer notebook hasn't been made yet, so we'll write this in your junior bracer one.
Please do tell.
Wow, 2000 Mira. Free BP. I feel a bit bad about it, but hey, a job well done is a job well done. Alright, let's get back to enjoying the birthday festival. Yeah, you're right. Once we're done taking a look around, how about a break in the East Block rest area?
Alright, quest completed.
Right. Excelente. I don't remember if there's like... Ooh. Over here. Okay. I wonder if you can see the other characters wandering around or not.
I can't wait for next year's Royal Tournament.
Wait, you're gonna compete again?
Of course I am. It was super fun. You're joining me, right, Joshua?
So it's already a done deal, huh? Fine. I'll be there with you.
Oh, this place is super packed. Well, it is pretty hot out today. No wonder the ice cream stand is so popular. Just watching everybody eat is making my mouth water. Oh, speaking of, we have a promise to keep, right? A promise. You remember when you got all sulky when we dressed as maids? I told you I'd make it up to you with ice cream. Why do you always remember silly things like that? I thought you were talking about the promise we made back at the rest area. Oh, right, there's that too. But honestly, in broad daylight, it doesn't quite feel right, you know? Huh? Anyway, after we make our way around, we should stop by the rest area behind the department store. I'll get you ice cream there. Sound good? Okay. Ice cream. One other place. I wanted to check if Niall and Dorothy are at the news area. I don't remember if they have unique dialogue. I kind of think they do, but you can always check.
Sneaking past security at midnight. That's gotta be one of our craziest memories.
And the curry and coffee Niall treated us to. We can laugh about it now because we made it through.
We really did good, you and me.
Niall, Dorothy. You home? Oh, here's Dorothy. Hi, everyone. You won't believe what Niall just said. So it turns out this article might get us a shot at the Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer? Basically, it's an award given every year for excellence in stuff like journalism, literature, music, that sort of thing. Not to be confused with the Pulitzer Prize. It's pretty much the holy grail for journalists. That's huge, congrats. Aw, you're too kind, but it's thanks to all of you. Is now here? There he is. Oh yeah, no. Hey Estelle, Joshua, you guys did a really great job. Thanks to you, the special edition on the coup is selling like crazy. I think I can read this newspaper. The stories about what you all did really got people talking. A real shame the Bracer Guild policy won't let us print your names. If you ever come across any big scoops in the future, you know where to find me. Okay, so I think that... check the... I don't know if there's any other dialogue. I just get started. These things take time, man. Life is about timing. Timing. If there's any other characters running around. Okay, I'm gonna check the newsstand. I wonder if Anton is here. He is. His birthday best one. Everybody sure looks like they're having fun. Ah, he doesn't have anything unique. Okay. We'll see Anton again in the future. Again. And again. And again.
Hey, how you doing?
Accessory shop.
Please take a look.
Are there any bargains?
Special edition! Alright. This is the final
I'll take
newspaper
this.
in the game.
Thank you.
Oh, I got an achievement even. Bookmaster. I didn't fill in all entries in the books.
Welcome.
Are there any bargains?
We'll show
Now,
them someday.
The fucky wucky I made was that there was a character here. It's Philip. Mrs. Dahl and Mr. Joshua. Please allow me to extend my deepest apologies for the trouble His Grace caused on account of my shortcomings. Oh yeah, speaking of Duke Doonan, what's he up to? Well, His Grace received a stern rebuke from Her Majesty and has been placed under house arrest. He is currently spending his days in deep self-reflection in a room at the Irby Royal Villa. I see. So what brings you here today, Philip? Well, to be perfectly honest, I was sent by His Grace to purchase some donuts. Huh. Self-reflection with donuts. I mean, that sounds perfectly fine to me. Well, he hasn't changed much. There's a makes me wonder if you can't actually get them after doing the final dungeon. There'd be a character in here that has, that wants all the Carnelia books. But I think maybe you can only get them before the final dungeon. Which is a shame because there is New Game Plus for this game. I'm not going to go do it on stream. I don't typically play New Game Plus for JRPGs. But if I ever do that New Game Plus, there would never, I would not have the ultimate weapons. Which is a shame. Oh well. So let's read this. The final newspaper, special edition. Tried to overthrow the queen and gets put in time. It must be nice being royalty. He is her nephew. Yeah, nephew. Her nephew. I would have locked him up. Well, he should be tried for treason. Maybe even executed in some kingdoms. Heroic rescue of Her Majesty the Queen. Yesterday at noon, a coalition consisting primarily of bracers and members of the Royal Guard stormed Gransel Castle, rescuing Queen Alicia from what appears to be effectively house arrest by the Intelligence Division. The group swiftly subdued the Special Ops soldiers and reclaimed the castle. High-ranking officials, including Colonel Richard, have been taken into custody on charges of attempted coup d'etat. In this issue, we'll do a deep dive to uncover the truth behind the chaos in the capital. Note to our readers, no doubt many readers will be shocked by today's headline. Until now, our publication has refrained from reporting on major events, including the occupation of the castle and Her Majesty's confinement, as we sought to investigate and expose the Intelligence Division's corrupted conspiracy. We sincerely apologize for the abrupt nature of this revelation, and humbly request our readers' understanding, Editor-in-Chief. Behind the plot, Richard's dark agenda. Colonel Richard, the young reformer who founded the Intelligence Division, has been revealed as the mastermind behind a meticulously planned coup. Under the guise of reform, he used his Intelligence Division to gather compromising information on high-ranking Royal Army officials such as corruption and illicit relationships, while eliminating those known to their integrity, such as General Morgan, through more ruthless and direct means. Through these tactics, Richard swiftly seized control of the Royal Army from within. It's a beheading in my books. A nice face branding in exile. Oh man, I gotta read through all this. You made me older. Oh, it's gonna suck. Central Factory terrorist incident. Also linked to Intelligence Division. A face print. That's what they put on his face. They just brand the word idiot across his head. Or traitor. New evidence links the Central Factory terrorist attack, which provided the pretext for the arrest of the Royal Guard, to Richard's special ops units of the Intelligence Division. The incident appears to be part of a complex false flag operation intended to frame the Royal Guard and secure military dominance. Bracer Guild is currently investigating the full implications of this attack, which allegedly aimed to seize experimental equipment and abduct Professor Russell, a leading Orban expert. Next, Princess Claudia taken hostage. Having gained control over most of the military, Richard finally enacted his coup plan. His goal was to install Duke Dunan, the Queen's nephew, on the throne in place of Queen Alicia, allowing him to rule behind the scenes. By taking Princess Claudia hostage, he tried to force Her Majesty to abdicate. Richard's scheme, however, was uncovered by the Royal Guard, led by Lieutenant Schwartz. A fierce confrontation ensued between the Royal Guard and Special Ops. Outnumbered, the Royal Guard was defeated and Princess Claudia was captured. Subsequently, the Royal Guard was falsely branded as terrorists and driven underground. With all obstacles seemingly eliminated, the coup appeared certain to succeed. The rise of unexpected heroes. Just as all seemed lost, unlikely heroes emerged. These individuals managed to slip past the Special Ops security and infiltrate the castle, successfully meeting with the Queen, who was under house arrest. In accordance with the Bracer Guild's request, we will refrain from disclosing their identities here. However, thanks to the information they provided, the Guild, previously unaware of their full situation due to Intelligence Division censorship, finally recognized the true gravity of the crisis. From that point onward, the Bracer Guild became the central force opposing the Intelligence Division. Liberation of Irby Royal Villa and Her Majesty united with Lieutenant Schwartz and the Royal Guard, the Bracer Guild launched a coordinated midnight operation, liberating Irby Royal Villa and rescuing Princess Claudia among other hostages. At precisely noon yesterday, as the bells of Gransel Cathedral tolled, rescue forces composed primarily of Bracers and the Royal Guard launched a three-pronged attack on Gransel Castle from air, ground, and underground. As the Intelligence Division controlled the Royal Army, suppression forces closed in. A fierce battle erupted within Gransel Castle and its underground facilities against the Special Ops. While the Bracers successfully rescued the Queen, the approaching Royal Army units were stopped by General Morgan, who had escaped captivity and rushed to Gransel to halt their advance. Thus ended Richard and the Intelligence Division's coup moments before he seemed poised for victory. The power of nameless heroes. It has become abundantly clear that the ambitions of the Intelligence Division were not foiled by the strength of any single hero. Instead, it was the cumulative courage of countless unnamed individuals that generated the strength necessary to overcome such a formidable conspiracy. Among the Royal Guard and Bracers were several brave civilians. Indeed, even in the final battle, the Liberation side was far from adequately manned. Once again, it was the bravery of ordinary citizens that made this operation possible. This reporter, too, has drawn strength from such selfless courage. Of the many who stepped forward, I must extend my heartfelt gratitude to two junior Bracers, without whom writing this article would have been impossible. As I pen this final conclusion, my gratitude toward them only deepens. According to the Bracer Guild, these two will soon receive the promotion they've been chasing after. As a humble reporter, I ask readers to forgive this indulgence to honor these unsung heroes with a personal message. Congrats, you have my blessings. If you're ever in the mood for curry, I'll gladly treat you as many servers as you'd like. End. Society Royal Guard's honor restored. Unit officially reorganized. The Royal Guards, previously branded as rebels and terrorists and forced into hiding, have officially had their ranks and honor restored. Military HQ is expected to formally announce the Royal Guard's reorganization later today, with all members, including Lieutenant Julia, anticipated to return to their original posts. General Morgan appointed head of Military HQ. In the aftermath of the recent coup attempt, the Royal Army faces mounting calls for a comprehensive reorganization to prevent the recurrence of such chaos. The Royal Assembly has proposed a restructuring plan with General Morgan at its helm. The Royal Army is expected to follow this proposal closely, with General Morgan is expected to assume the position of head of military HQ soon. Additionally, it's been announced that former Colonel Cassius Bright, who notably served as General Morgan's right-hand man during the 100-Day War, will return to active duty as his assistant. The former colonel stepped down from military service following the war and has been active within the Bracer Guild. Society. Strange phenomena at the Four Towers. Yesterday afternoon, numerous reports came in from across the kingdom describing sightings of mysterious lights. Witnesses claim beams of light shot upward from the tops of the Four Towers. Investigations are currently underway, and we await further details on the phenomena. Right. Strange. Four Towers. Strange. I don't think we can actually win. Okay. Now, that is that, so let's finish this up.
This place is the best for shopping.
Save? 53 hours, almost on the dot. Alright. It's been a long journey. Alright, we're here. I don't think we've seen everything, but do you want to take a break? I think that's it. I don't think there's really much else to say. I think he's talking about if you talk to all the NPCs, but that's not necessary.
Phew. I think we've seen everything. I'm so tired now.
Let's take a break here for a while. At least there aren't any signs of trouble brewing in the capital.
Man, is that what you're so worried about? Just leave the cleanup to Dad and the others for today. He got here late, so it's only fair, right?
That's true. Guess it's just my nature to worry.
What are we gonna do with you? Anyway, we're officially senior bracers now.
Which means we can act without the direct supervision of the branches. We'll get calls to help understaffed branches too, so we'll probably travel by airship a lot more. But that also means more responsibility.
Yeah, but we can handle it. We did just stop a coup in the capital. And I never want to hear Dad say, "Oh, I worry about you if Joshua's not there," again.
I don't think you have to worry about that. I'd like to stay with you, though.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
What?
What? Is that a problem?
No. It's not that. What do you mean by staying with me?
What did he mean by this?
Well, we know each other, and we know each other's quirks and eccentricities. I thought it would be good for us to keep working together.
Oh, you mean as bracers?
As bracers.
Goodness, for a second there, I thought you just confessed your love for me.
Wouldn't that be funny still?
Huh?
Nah! Forget it! Forget I said anything!
Estelle, does that mean...
Man, it's seriously hot today. Nothing like ice cream on a hot day. As promised, it's my treat today. Wait here a sec.
Here she goes.
I'm pretty sure the ice cream stand is the other way.
Like the cartoon sound effect.
Could it be Estelle?
Is it finally getting through to you, Joshua? Fucking idiot.
No, there's no way.
No, of course not.
Oh, to be young, I can't help but envy you.
Professor Alba.
Professor Alba?
Ah, it's been a while, hasn't it? There's been so much commotion lately, but it's such a relief peace has returned to this fair place. After all, they say it's a curse to live in interesting times. Oh, is something the matter? You look quite pale. You've just become a senior bracer, have you not? Try to look a little cheerful, would you? Ah, I should give you a little something too. Though I'm afraid it won't be anything extravagant.
From the moment we met, I've always felt uneasy around you. I've grown used to it by now, but for some reason, your existence made me tremble.
Oh?
And with all those incidents, where people's memories were erased, you were always there. You claimed you were researching something, but your timing, it was always too perfect. Kurt's reaction was the deciding factor. He had lost his memories, looking so unwell, sitting in the arena. And you were there too.
He was at the top, at the back.
Professor Alba, it was you all along, wasn't it?
I'm in awe that you figured it out, what with your manipulated perception and memories. I'd expect nothing less from my creation.
What?
Well then, shall we lift the veil?
You're...
It seems you've finally remembered who I am. I am the one who gathered the shattered pieces of your heart, the one who put them back together, restored you, the one who gave a soul to the empty puppet you once were.
With the power to warp and control a person's memory and perception. One of the 7 Anguis. Weissman the Faceless!
Long time no see. Enforcer number 13. The Black Fang. Joshua Astray.
It's the name of his limit break.
You've been manipulating everything from the shadows. That means Lieutenant Lawrence is...
You're quite right. I left your memories of him. So, I see you've pieced it together rather quickly. I imagine he's rather pleased about it.
Are you... Are you here to kill me?
There's no cause for concern. The first phase of our plan has concluded successfully. I merely had some free time and decided to pay you a visit.
The first phase? The unsealing of the ruins underground.
The gate blocking the path to the Oriole. Forcing it open was merely the first phase of our plan. It's now impossible for it to ever close again.
So this isn't over. What exactly is the Oriole? What is the Society planning? What are you planning?
If you want to know so badly, why not return to us? You could resume your former position immediately. You may be a bit rusty, yes, but I have no doubt you'll be in fighting form in no time. No need to look so cross. I understand. You have a family to protect now. A father you respect, and of course, the girl you hold dear. Even if he were still on our side, throwing all that away would be absurd. That's precisely why I came to see you. As a reward for your cooperation in our plan, I have come to set you free from our society. Congratulations, Joshua. You're now free. You've done well over the past 5 years.
What?
Oh dear, how disappointing. I expected you to be happy. Perhaps your emotional responses are still somewhat underdeveloped.
Cooperated? In what plan? What are you talking about?
That's absurd.
Ah, my apologies. I seem to have neglected to mention it. Your role wasn't that of assassination, but of intelligence gathering.
What?
As an abandoned child, you gained his sympathy and were successfully taken in. Thus, you reported various things to our agents. Information on the Bracer Guild and details about Cassius Bright. You don't remember giving such reports, of course. I made sure of that. S-rank Bracer, Cassius Bright. He was, without a doubt, the greatest obstacle in our plan. Had he been in the nation, he would have quickly crushed the Colonel's coup attempt. So we studied him and attempted to lure him away without drawing attention. Your information proved invaluable.
No. It can't be.
So, allow me to thank you again. You've done exceptionally well these last 5 years.
No! You're lying! It's all a lie! All that time I spent with Estelle, all the moments we shared.
Why are you acting so distraught? You can go on. Simply pretend nothing happened and live as before with your beloved family. As long as you stay silent, no one will ever know. But then again, perhaps that is too cruel a fate. After all, the Bright family is too pure. Too pure for a creature like you. Has their love blinded you? You can act human all you want, but that's not who you are. You operate by pure logic, driven solely to accomplish your assigned task. Your body and reflexes have been enhanced. You could slay thousands on your own. You are my ultimate creation, a weapon made of human flesh. The Black Fang. It will always be impossible for someone like you to blend in with others. Even if you stay with them, true happiness will forever be out of your reach. So remember, if it becomes unbearable, there's always a place for you here. The Society of Souls under the rule of our great master, with the Ouroboros.
It hurts just as bad seeing it the second time as it does the first.
So this is my punishment. Karen. Lev. I am...
Whew, that line was so long. It's already getting dark. I wonder what Joshua thought about what I said. I'm so embarrassed.
Ah, Estelle.
Oh, Professor Alba! What a surprise to see you here.
Yes, I suppose it is. I actually just ran into Joshua. You have my congratulations on becoming senior bracers.
Thanks.
What is it?
Professor, you seem different. You seem really happy about something.
So you've noticed. Actually, I've made some exciting progress in my research. It's put me in a very good mood.
Oh, that's great! Sorry. The ice cream is melting, so I'd better go. See you later!
I see. So she's Cassius Bright's offspring. This should prove quite entertaining.
Sorry I'm late. It was so crowded, so it took forever. But look, I finally got our ice cream.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Looks delicious.
Yeah. So, about earlier.
Oh, sorry about that. I guess I phrased that kind of weird. That would have been a pretty terrible way to tell you I love you, huh?
Well, it wasn't that bad.
Well, there's no need to rush into anything. Just because we're senior bracers doesn't mean we can't do something else. Maybe we should both take some time to think carefully about our futures.
Yeah, totally. If we got married, I'd have to take some time off to raise kids. Wait, what? What am I saying? I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Went from stepsister straight to marriage.
Well, it's getting late, so why don't we eat our ice cream on the way back to the castle? Dad and the others are waiting.
Joshua?
What is it, Estelle? Did you have more to say about your future?
Nope, nothing. Let's hurry back to the castle.
What is it, Estelle? You've been fidgety all night. Got something on your mind?
Yeah. Hey, Shara. Wasn't Joshua acting a bit strange at dinner?
The only person who was acting strange was you. Joshua was as calm as usual.
Yeah, but...
Aha! I see, so that's how it is.
That's how it is.
What are you talking about?
No, you don't need to hide it. I always knew you were. Guess you finally realized it. You've fallen for Joshua, huh?
Oh. So, you've noticed?
Sorry, but it was totally obvious. But I'm guessing he doesn't know you feel that way, right?
Yeah. At least I don't think so. Joshua's always been clueless about that kind of stuff. But I'm one to talk.
Oh, that's so sweet. The girl who always preferred food over flowers. Look at you now. It's enough to move me to tears.
That's it. I'm never talking to you again.
All right. Sorry for teasing you. But you know, come to think of it, you two met when you were just kids. No wonder it took you both a while to recognize your feelings.
Yeah, I guess you're right. During our journey, I started to notice him more and more. And once I started paying attention, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Oh, this is so unlike me.
Every bud eventually blooms. All girls go through this.
Shara.
Forgive me if I'm being nosy, but since you know how you feel about him, why not just tell him? If you're still unsure, want me to check your horoscope?
No. Actually, I've already made up my mind. In fact, I already promised to talk to him.
I see. Now that's the spirit, little sis. Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm gonna cry.
Enough already. But thanks, Shara. I feel a little braver now. I think I'll go talk to Joshua for a little bit.
What? You're gonna confess your love for him right here, right now?
No, I'm not doing that. Joshua's been acting a little weird today. I'm going to talk to him about that first.
I see. Well, you do know him better than anybody else. I'm sure things will all work out between the two of you. And if the conversation goes well, you could just tell him how you feel.
Well, I'll do my best. Okay, I'm off.
Aw, first love. I hope it all goes well for them.
Huh. I don't see either of them. Come to think of it, Dad did say he had another meeting to attend. But what about Joshua?
Harmonica.
Joshua? Where's that coming from? I'll never get tired of this beautiful sound. Wait, it's even clearer than usual.
Outside.
The night breeze just feels so good. Oh, there he is.
Hey, Estelle. It's a beautiful night.
Yeah. You're playing that song again. The Whereabouts of Light.
I've lost so much. But this song and this harmonica have always been by my side. So, I thought I'd play it one last time.
What?
Let me keep my promise to you. I want to tell you everything about me from before we met.
Joshua. Okay, I understand.
It's a bit of a long story, but is that all right?
Of course.
That will say over next stream.
I'll listen
I'm
to
just
every
kidding.
word.
Thank you. Long ago, in a place far away, there lived a young boy. The boy was clingy and timid, and there was nothing special about him. But because he was surrounded by people who loved him, he was happy. But one day, something happened and broke the little boy's heart. He stopped speaking, stopped eating. He spent his days exclusively playing the harmonica, day in and day out. Despite the encouragement of those around him, the boy continued to grow thinner and weaker. Then one day, a magician appeared before the boy. He said, "I will mend this boy's heart, but a price must be paid." And so the boy was entrusted to the magician. He began piecing the boy's heart back together. However, the magician shaped the boy into what he wanted him to be. And when the boy's heart was finally mended, he had become a killer. For 2 years, the boy killed people every day. He wiped out entire squadrons under the cover of night, slaughtering dozens. He once infiltrated the mansion of a heavily guarded minister from a certain country and slit his throat. Sometimes he used explosives, taking innocents down alongside his targets. In time, the boy became nothing but a monster. Deeply feared by all, he became known as the Black Fang. Then, the magician gave the boy a new target. The hero who once protected the kingdom of Liberal from the Northern Empire. He was one of only 4 S-rank bracers in the continent. But the target was too strong. Like a kitten challenging a tiger, the boy was soundly defeated. After he failed, the magician's agents appeared before the boy.
Monster Boy, Monster
The target
Boy.
had seen his face, and the boy had to be
Monster
disposed
Boy,
of.
Monster Boy.
But then, someone else appeared to save the young boy. It was the very bracer he had failed to assassinate. And that young boy was brought to the bracer's home, where he met a young girl.
That's the prologue of the game. Joshua arrives.
The boy lived a wonderful life in that home for 5 long years. But in truth, he should have never been allowed to have that life. And all dreams must come to a close. Reality was knocking. And so his story ends. Thank you. Thank you for listening to all that.
And, how much of that's true?
All of it. It's all true. My broken heart. My blood-stained hands. The failed attempt to assassinate your father. And I've been betraying you and everyone all this time. The truth is, that boy could never have been saved. My life has brought nothing but misfortune and disaster. That's how cursed I am. So, the boy decided to leave. Instead of dragging those who gave him a wonderful life into further misfortune, and to stop the magician who created the monster he became.
Huh?
Take this. It's the last remnant of the heart I once had. I don't need it anymore. I want you to have it. I can't possibly repay you for 5 years of happiness, but I think it's better than nothing.
Stop joking around.
Huh?
I said stop it. Don't call it a dream. It's like you're saying none of this was real. Who cares about your past? Broken heart? So what? What does any of that matter?
Estelle.
Look at me. Look me in the eyes. I've been with that boy this whole time. I know the good and the bad parts. I know he's been struggling. I know he's been fighting against something. But that's the boy I fell in love with. I won't let you go alone. You can't just leave me and my feelings behind like this. I'll never forgive you.
Estelle.
Finally! After 54 hours!
Joshua. What was that? There's something in my mouth.
It's a fast-acting sedative. Don't worry, there aren't any side effects.
Why? Why would you do this?
My dear Estelle, you always shine so brightly. I was always happy with you. Yet at the same time, it was so very painful. Like how a bright light casts a dark shadow. The closer I got to you, the more I could see how truly terrible I am. There were even times I wished I'd never met you.
No!
But I don't feel that way anymore. I'm glad to have met you. Even if all I can do now is run. You mean more to me than anyone.
Joshua. Joshua!
Thank you for everything. And know, from the moment we met, I have always loved you. Goodbye, Estelle.
Again, it hurts the second time saying it just as bad as it did the first. Let's start the second one right now. The second one comes out in September. I mean, there is the old second one. Matt Mercer, Christina V, Ben Pronsky's Agats. Charles Calhoun, Stephen Fool. That really was a Trails in the Sky first chapter. Now available on Steam. Interestingly enough, there he is, George Peter! George Peter's in the credits. He was in my chat. This game, I think, was localized. It's not this game, but the old one was localized in 2005, 2006, somewhere around there for PSP. You wanna know what the biggest blue ball in the history of Falcom games is? The second one didn't get localized for like 6 years to English. Imagine beating this and then you're like, man, where's the second game? It can't end like this! And then 6 years later is when the second game drops. Still, Joshua growing up together. Yeah, I'll wait 6 years. Luckily, we had to wait till September. 8 more months. Which isn't bad. That's a 1-year wait. You gotta wait 6 years to play the single play version, yeah. For the immersion. Oh god, we're chugging. Oh man, the game is breaking. Right there in the cuts again, cigarettes. Tired Tyler Trails in the Sky 5-hour long video essay on YouTube. God, would it take 5 hours? I feel like every game it's alone would take at least 2, maybe 3, depending on the game. Mind you, the 12th game came out today. In English, because we're on the horizon. And honestly, getting into this series is a disservice to like skip around on the story. You really need the context of previous games because this is an ongoing story front to back. So look for the 12-hour essays instead. I'm gonna look very much forward to playing the second remake. But the crusty version, I refuse to wait. It's an option. It's definitely an option, but I'm telling you guys now, it is a long, long journey. It took me 3 years to get to the 10th game. Trails in the sky, first chapter. Trails are connected. See? And soon, a new journey begin. Save the clear data, of course. This is for New Game Plus, and this also gives benefits in the second. If it's like the old game, this will give benefits for the second game. 3 years, now we run it back. Right, we start over from the beginning.
It's time.
Lawrence.
I'll do this. Karen.
Why they put the trailer in? Yes. I mean, just so you can already watch. Bidding farewell to Estelle. Joshua vanishes into the shadows. Estelle sets forth on a journey determined to bring him home. In search of cherished memories left with the harmonica. Well, at every step, their paths once more. Begin to trace the trails of destiny.
I won't give up. Until I find that idiot again. I'll keep fighting. I'll never give up. I will bring Joshua back home.
Trails in the sky. To be continued. Whew! God damn. I wouldn't say no to playing the old games again, because 2 is even better than the first. The third is my favorite. Do it, play them. Trails from Zero to Azure is the best arc, in my opinion. It's not a speed hack. Well, they already have turbo mode built into them, which is the good news. That's the best part. They really should make just a good anime. They really should. They made like a really shitty anime of like the first half of the second game, and it was pretty terrible. I mean, it's worth a watch just for the meme, but I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it. Christmas Pepe. Is it easy? Yeah, I would not be against playing the old games. But you two are the most invested ones in this game. So, I'm open to the suggestion. I do have other Falcon games too. They made other series too. They have Tokyo Xanadu. Easy's a Pepe. I can't see I can't see on OES. I see it in the stream though, yeah. Why is it a Christmas Pepe? What the fuck? Very strange Twitch. Christmas is gone, man. Christmas is last month. It's a Christmas Pepe for zombies. Shit. I do have a side Trails game. It's actually an action game called Legend of Nayuta Trails or something like that. Which It is yet to be seen whether that's relevant to this ongoing series, but what that would also mean is that you would see Trails in the Sky 2 twice. Again, not against it. It is a very long time investment, though. Well, I guess on a stream schedule wouldn't be that long, right? How long did it take me to get through this game? 4 weeks? 4 weeks a game? The good news is I could get through them pretty fast, because I know generally where I'm supposed to go. Now we can start the Yakuza series. Say here in the comment. Oh god. I'll run through the Yakuza series, starting from 0. If we're gonna smoke crack, really smoke some crack, right? God. 700 hours of Yakuza, yeah. This game took me 54 hours, roughly. Approximately. Imagine the next one will take roughly the same time. And they have to remake the third game. There's no way they don't. The third game's a lot shorter than the first two as well. Oh, that can all be discussed as we go along. Last time I played the second Trails was... Let me look. Yeah. 51 hours. I get through the Yakuza series too samey. Enjoyed 0. Yeah, the Yakuza series is the asset flip. Asset reuse series. But I love it. It gives it a certain kind of charm. Trails as a series is very similar, but they do add combat mechanics as you go along. And switch it up when they can. Well then. How big is Trails? Boundless Trails. Legend of Nayuta. Biggs, okay. And the other one is Returning to the East series. I'll look into them some more. The other thing too is that the old Trails games don't have any voice acting. Not until 0. It's a lot of reading. Ichiban! Yeah, Ichiban's the goat. Side missions are like most the enjoyment of Yakuza, yeah. I mean, the main story's great. Main stories are always great. But those side missions are really entertaining. I'm just glad Yakuza 3 is getting a remake. Yakuza 3 really needed a remake. Because 3's combat does not age well at all. It's been okay. Oh, Yakuza Ishin, yeah, that was a good game. I really like that as well. Okay. That's 2. start maining Japan movies. That's what I play because of swords. It is a good one to get into the series because that game doesn't rely on you having to know any of the other games to really enjoy it. The biggest culprits would be Yakuza's the new Infinite Wealth required. Infinite Wealth makes a very large assumption that you played all the other Yakuza games. I think it's Yakuza 8. Stranger Sword. Hellstone prior playing 7 I didn't other than the main points. Yeah, it helps for 7, you don't have to though. It just gives you a little context, but there's no need for Ichiban's first game. Been in agony for 3 years. Yeah, a very large chunk of 8 assumes that you played the others. I'm also waiting the first one gave up. I think the first one too suffers. It did get its remake. I'm sure you played the Kiwami one. It does that game is like a 1-for-1 remake of the original. So the story pacing and cinematography for the cutscenes is kind of jarring because technically they were done in like 2004 or even earlier than that, 2002 I think, and then they were redone in the new engine or newer engine at the time. Yeah, I would say don't touch 3 until the remake is out. Absolutely. 3's combat is so rough. It has not aged well at all. That was a PS3 game, and it played like those old school like Streets of Rage kind of games. Everything in that game blocks you mid-combo. It's like, why do you even have combos if you just get blocked mid-combo or interrupted? So you get a punch, run away. Punch, run away. Punch, run away. And you do that for the entirety of the game. To get through 0 and 2 before 3 is out. Unless 3 come out. Remake comes on February. Well, you got a month. You got a few weeks. Yeah, that Steam Cloud thing fuck you up. It pissed me off just hearing about it. Honestly, at that point, you might as well just get like a one-hit mod and just speed through it. Yeah, just get a cheat mod that sets your attack damage to like 1 billion and then just go through it. Is it its peak? It is peak Yakuza. I give a fuck about the gameplay until 7. Honestly, you could do the same with I was gonna say Yakuza 2 is on the Dragon engine and you get the ragdolls, which is really funny. Low accurate, yeah. I would say I actually enjoyed 5's combat the most out of all the games. Because that has like juggles in it. Same with fucking what's it? Why did that flag you? Okay. Can auto mod, man. Alright. Probably based on a just get checked by busted ass bitch. Yeah. Zero had the best variety of mini games, which significantly helped it become one of the best games of the series in general. He does get flagged for the dumbest shit. Last night, when I did the collab with Alice, he got flagged for 3 words specifically. He got flagged for... It was like... Sounds like women, that's it. But like in the context of the sentence, it wasn't even like a... He got flagged for misogyny. In the context of the sentence, he used those 3 words and it wasn't even misogyny. Didn't make any sense. Alice is right though. It discriminates. Yeah, he couldn't post mana what? It's like, what? Alice is right though. It discriminates on who's typing into whose chat because the stuff he says in her chat gets flagged, but what he says in my chat, it doesn't get flagged. Other than like stuff like that, what you just got flagged for. I don't even understand how Mana Watt got flagged. I thought discrimination was wrong, Twitch. And then I get banned. Oh, this is like a this game, okay. The story is notably worse though. What about Tokyo Xanadu? But I do have line in store. Is a dungeon crawler. How you say Isekai? Yeah. Well, what I really need to do is I need to go over what I want to plan to stream next. As the big game, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Next big game. Start streaming. Along with some other plans. Maybe I will install Trails too. Like Zark6 said, run it back. 3 years! 3 years of content! Well, it's not gonna be 3 years of content, it's gonna be squish as much as I can before the second remake comes out. I will say this, the crossbow games that beat Trails 4 and 5, they have Japanese voice acting, but their voice actors are impeccable. They're really good. And it has that chibi art still. I'll consider. These are all things I'm gonna consider. So, but that was the Trails in 100 Years, Trails in the Sky. But I'll run it back because I'm on Trails of Daybreak, or Trails Through Daybreak 1. That's 9 games from now, I think. Wait, 3 Trails in the Skies, 2 crossbow games. That's 5. 4 Cold Steel games. That's 9. Reverie is 10. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the 11th game. That's 10 games from now. Run it back. I'm gonna catch you guys up to where I'm at in the Trail series. And then, yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea. Initially I would be opposed to the idea because of the time investment. But like thinking about it after seeing that ending again, I'm like, maybe I do want to do that. It's a big undertaking, but I can do it. Just gotta do some push-ups and some stretches. God, they have to remake the 3rd. Okay. I'm just stalling for time now. But yes. We'll see. Maybe I'll talk about it in the Discord a little bit. But that is where I'm going to end this stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really enjoyed playing this remake. This would have been my go-to. Sorry, Expedition 33. I'm biased though, and I will engage that bias as much as I can. Well, I beat this game in 2026. This is GOTY 2026. Sorry, guys. I look very much forward to the second remake. Maybe I will run it back and go through it one more time. One more good try. Expedition 33 is peak. I probably won't stream it. I don't know when I'll play it. Like I said before, I got spoiled hard on a bunch of stuff, and I got spoiled on basically everything in that game. Thanks, YouTube. Prick site. A lot of the story twists are not going to be available. I will play it eventually, though. I will play through it eventually. Yes. This is what we're calling the stream. So we will. Fuck! I gotta see Estelle and Joshua's story. Okay, we'll see Estelle and Joshua's story soon. Maybe sooner than I planned originally. Okay. Yep. We're gonna call it there. Estelle, be back. See your story through. We'll take down Weissman once and for all. Again. But as always, Wanderers, take care and farewell. We're gonna run it back. It's gonna happen. It has to happen now. Now I'm hype.